but okay, thanks.
Plant fiber like her own with the fish.
You want to scan the pictures up?
Oh.
Sometimes they're blowing down.
I can get something else. That's kind of going funky long. Yeah. I'll get. Yeah, Mom.
Tim, I'm going to borrow your microphone.
That would be contact.
Oh, to pull one of yours in? Or?
Pull in right here, guys, behind them. It's okay with the neighbors. Yeah. It's okay for the parking behind us. Come on, Connor. Down here. You guys, come gather around so we show all the shirts.
Where?
We want to make sure you see Daddy's outfit there.
Yeah, Cameron, I want to be
Okay, Ron, my kids are just okay.
You guys come on this side. Come on and jump around. Go.
I don't know if lemonade always makes it Okay, guys, are we ready? You guys come on in and do a double row if you have to. Yeah, do a double row, get two people. We want y'all. Please.
Okay, we all get there.
Thank you so much.
Come hither.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, they're going to hate me because I've been doing movies for
Oh, then stand behind me. Maybe they'll focus on you, not me. But I'd be awesome.
everybody in the show.
right there.
Oh,
okay, I guess we're all here.
first one, you can introduce it.
Yep. I'm Stephanie Babb. I'm Brian's sister, and we are all here in memory of my brother. And I want to thank, first and foremost, the community, his friends, and his family for the support that we've been shown in this recent tragedy. Thank you so much.
I want to introduce my grandson, Brian's son, Connor, and his best bud. This is my other grandson. And
Sister Stephanie, Aunt Marla, Aunt Patty,
Sister Rhonda,
cousins,
Mom Wanda, friends, neighbors.
Yeah.
So you'll have to forgive me. I have never done this before. I don't wear my heart on my sleeve, but today I'm wearing my brother on my chest. So with that, I'll start. March 30th, my brother, Captain Brian Babb of the National Guard, was shot and killed by the Eugene Police Department. He would have been 50 years old on the 12th of this month. District Attorney Alex Gardner and the IDFIT, the Deadly Force Investigative Team, determined the shooting was not a criminal offense and deemed justified. My brother was not engaged in any criminal activity and came to the door of his home repeatedly with no weapon to demand reprieve from the militaristic display from the SWAT team that included an armored vehicle and stationed snipers on his neighbor's roof. My brother was allotted less than an hour to live from the police's first arrival. 4,489 soldiers died in Iraq. 2,357 soldiers died in Afghanistan. Since 2001, 7,326 veterans have died of suicide and of being killed in the United States. Killed by police. Killed by police, thank you. Due to inconsistencies regarding personal accounts, an obvious disregard for my brother's condition, including full disability for post-traumatic stress disorder and a brain injury acquired while in combat, subsequent police responses to recent similar situations that resulted in non-lethal outcomes, I am calling upon our community to unite in defense of the very people whom lost their physical and emotional lives defending us. We, the people, are now responsible for protecting and serving the individuals who risk their quality of life to ensure we have the choice to decide how we want to live ours. It's our time to fight for the people who fought for us. They are our brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers, husbands, wives, daughters, sons, and neighbors. We need to reassess our definition of injury in combat and respond accordingly. I am advocating, we are all advocating for a standard protocol across the nation for our domestic law enforcement to utilize and specially train a task force to follow when responding to our veterans in distress. I am proposing Brian's bill, and that just about says it, because this doesn't work. It's not working for any of us.
My part of this, I'm a retired nurse. My daughter is a flight nurse. I was in the operating room for 20 years. When I make mistakes, I have to admit to them. And that makes our profession better, so people don't get hurt. The situation that has come up now is that the VA has turned their back primarily on every one of these young people. I have a nephew, Robin McBride, who is just retired from the Army after 20 years, 3 terms in Afghanistan. He sees these guys from day one. His belief is that the government, the VA, does not treat these guys as they step off the boat or the plane, and that's when they need their treatment. That's when treatment should begin, along with good, solid treatment of alcoholism, because literally they all come back, combined with the post-traumatic stress and the traumatic brain disorder. They almost always come back with either a drug problem or an alcohol problem, and that's not addressed. I have some numbers. First, I would like to say that I spent today over an hour attempting to reach out to the VA's hotline, their suicide line. Took me over an hour. I was actually put on hold. I finally learned that they have suicide prevention coordinators. I found that ours is in Roseburg, and her message was to leave a message, she'd get back to me. That's unacceptable. That's so unacceptable. The first thing we're going to be confronted with probably is that this is going to cost money. I don't believe it. I think we have trained personnel in the Army right now that could, upon their retirement, like Robin, could be trained, specially trained, to be the first responders to this kind of crisis. Brother to brother. People won't die then. Because if Brian had been confronted with his fellow servicemen, there would have never been him coming out with a rifle, which was unloaded.
And it shouldn't even be about cost at all.
And it can't be cost. When Obama put Robert McDonald in as Secretary of the Veterans Administration, he also gave him a very large wallet. I have to refer to my numbers.
Back there, right here.
Yeah, could you hand that?
Of course.
In 2015, the amount of money given to the VA was $63.2 billion. He provided in that $7.5 billion for mental health, with the idea of specifically pointing and targeting the post-traumatic stress and the brain trauma. There's $232 million is put just for traumatic brain injury alone. With the, I'll read it down, $243 million for readjustment counseling, and yet we've not seen any of that. $86.6 million for call center agents, assisted inquiries. That is a lot of money, and that amount of money doesn't even have to be changed to get these young people that are already in the service or just out of the service trained and ready to respond. I do not believe that the police have any business treating mental health patients. I think that these people need to do it, and then if they feel that they are beyond their capabilities, they can call the police in. But first and foremost, we need trained people. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. And I will be on Robert McDonald's doorstep until I get this bill through.
So if you want to write letters or anything else, please do so, because we will, and we need all the help we can
And we
get.
will be putting up his own
Website.
website.
Yep, it'll come up. Brian Babb. Brian's bill.
Any of the help, and I will be contacting each and every of the 22 veteran families a day that are dying here in the United States for lack of care.
What's your reaction, ma'am, to Alex Gardner's decision on Friday?
Mine, personally?
And you want to...
Personally, according to the law as it stands, I believe he made the choice he had to make. Do I believe the law is correct?
No.
Absolutely not. No, none. I do not.
HIPAA, as I said, I'm a nurse. HIPAA calls for anybody that is a reporter that must report they must report to prevent or lessen a serious or imminent threat to health and safety of an individual or the public. A disclosure may be made without the patient's consent to persons or entities that are reasonably able to prevent or lessen the threat. I don't think what happened to Brian was reported to anyone that was capable or willing to lessen the threat.
It's also going to save those people like Will Streetsman, who had no other choice but to take the action that he did. And if we provide them with the skills that they need to make better decisions, we're going to save a lot of lives.
Do you happen to know who was in charge of that team that came in down Devo Street? Because you know, when you know the responsibility
Still up
of that individual attitude.
No comment on that, sir.
You don't know.
I do.
Do you?
Go ahead.
Do you know who it is?
The 2 first patrol officers that responded to the scene were in single individual patrol cars, and one of them was Will Stoopman. And the way they responded was they were not told that Brian was unarmed and on the telephone with his therapist and making very good progress at that time. They were not told that. So when they arrived on the scene, they cased it as though they had an active shooter with a gun in hand, which is not what was happening.
You know who the second one was?
I don't remember the name offhand.
My son died, according to the police officers and to the district attorney, because he was a trained military officer, and that was clue enough for them to bring out the SWAT. That was what they based their decision on in bringing in SWAT.
I have to quote what my aunt said because it just brings it really home for me. If your kid's afraid of the dark, do you dress up as a boogeyman and scare him in the middle of the night? No, you don't. And that's what's happening. Veterans, PTSD. That's just the bottom line. They pushed him to that point. That's right.
He asked them to leave. He said, I'm no threat to anybody. I've done nothing wrong. Please leave my property. Everything's okay.
And he said, I have a constitutional right to be here. I'm asking you to leave.
And they refused to leave and demanded he come out of his home. And when he did, they shot him.
He didn't even get out of his home.
No, he was not. He was still in the doorway of his own home. He never stepped foot out of his home. Not once.
We have a question in terms of the officer that shot him. For one, that vehicle is completely armed, and he could have ducked down behind a barrier and have been perfectly safe from a bullet. I had asked the DA if they had any other guns on him, and he said no, they couldn't put a gun on this house behind us because it would have exposed him to Brian. And And yet
Contradicts what the neighbor said.
yet we know the neighbor said that there was in fact a shooter on their roof. And this
There's a lot of inconsistencies,
a
and
lot of inconsistencies.
that's our big concern, is the inconsistency of the information that was provided to the family by Alex Gardner
And released to the public.
and
in the
released to the
report.
public. So,
If you read the report carefully, you'll see the inconsistencies yourself. I just encourage you to look at it with a critical eye and use some critical thinking skills. You will absolutely see it's completely full of holes.
What I want to know, I'm a neighbor across the street, and when all this was going on, the police never came to me and told me to get my grandchildren in the house, out of my backyard. And it's a straight line from that house to my backyard. And I was never told anything that was going on.
When's your son come home?
And my son is coming home. He's going to hit the United States on the 7th. He's coming in from Afghanistan. And he will be here in Eugene on the 20th. And I'm kind of wondering, he has PTSD. Is he going to be safe in this town?
We are going to, on the 12th of May, we would like to hold birthday memorial for Brian at
Peaceful
Wayne
protest.
Morris, at the Wayne Morris Center, and then march over to the VA Center just for Brian. And anybody that would like to join us is invited to come down at noon. And we'll even have birthday cake. It is his 50th birthday.
Reasons, can I get your name, ma'am, real quick?
Wanda Holloway.
Spell both names for me.
WandaHollaway.
Okay, and the lady over here, ma'am, could you spell your
Anita Bjerklund. Last name is spelled B-J-E-R-K-L-U-N-D.
Okay, and ma'am, what was your
Rhonda McGowan, RONDA,
and then your name, ma'am?
Marlis Moats, M-A-R-L-I-S, M-O-A-T-S.
All right, I just need to make sure we get the names. What's that spell?
Speaking of inconsistencies, I think, was it you that emailed? Somebody emailed us talking about the tapes that were redacted.
We haven't been able to get them today before this deadline, but I have the ability to actually have the unredacted tape as I'm executor of his estate, and I'm the only one that'll release it to myself or Becky Higgins. So I should be able to have them tomorrow. And we want to listen to the majority of the tape that would be of interest to the public are all of the good communication she was having with my brother, where they laughed together and agreed
Made
to
an
meet
appointment.
the next morning.
for an appointment. He had already made his appointment for the next morning.
And none of that, was in the redacted version. You just get a very little bit. So it's important to us that the tape get
He
out.
was doing exactly what he needed to be doing to get the help he
How did you
deserved.
become aware of these redactions?
When they released it and when the VA met with us, their belief was because of the HIPAA laws, they could not release any parts of the tape that had Becky Higgins in conversation with my brother. So they only could share current interactions with the 911 dispatcher. So the entirety of, 40-some minutes of the tape is redacted and blank.
There's also about a video police have that doesn't reveal so much, but is there any other videos that the police might have had?
They
that,
say no.
They're saying no.
They're saying no.
But we're putting in requests for every
Yeah.
single bit of information that they have. And we'll be updating everyone as we go along, so.
And we have extensive auditory accounts, first-hand accounts from our neighbors, Brian's neighbors, and photographs that evening. They had the presence of mind to actually write down the events in the order that they happened while my brother was shot.
And they don't line up with the police report.
No, they don't, but the neighbors do. Each one of them. They all match.
Did Brian reach out to anybody in the family regarding his condition on the day of the death?
He actually talked to his father in the morning, and my father's not doing very well. He hasn't been able to speak to anyone at all. But he called my father. They were very close, and he said, I'm hurting. I'm not doing so well, Dad. And my dad said, Brian, call 911, get an ambulance. You need to go to the hospital. Brian said, Dad, if I go to the hospital, they get mad. They say I'm a VA patient. I need to see somebody with the VA. And my dad said, Brian, at least call your counselor. And my dad is haunted every minute since my brother died that he didn't get him to call a taxi cab to the hospital or anything else. But Brian did what Dad told him to do. He picked up the phone, he called his counselor. And and an hour later he was dead.
The gentleman that was supposed to be the negotiator for Brian, his words were to Brian, come out, Brian Babb, come out with your hands up, over a loudspeaker.
That's not negotiation. No.
That was it.
They used the PA, and then the bullhorn, when Brian said, no, thank you, I'm going to stay in my home where I belong.
He
where I have
came
every
out
right to
twice,
be.
3 times, unarmed, to tell
So
him.
with all of this going on, do you think Brian was really scared of what was going on, and he just was
100%.
Terrified.
It was a
Absolutely.
flashback, you know, it's just,
He was cornered.
he was
Provoked. and
If
he
I
was
look out my
threatened.
window and see 5 guys on rooftops with assault rifles, I'm going to get paranoid.
Screaming
And I don't
at
have
you.
PTSD.
Yeah.
Imagine a trained combat vet that shows up and he's surrounded by military-type people.
And
My
tank,
Of
son
course he was scared.
period. They call it a bear cat, which is a really sweet, cute, fuzzy name, but it's a tank. It's a tank,
Armored
and it was
tank.
in his front yard.
Which they ran through his fences after he had already been fallen. They waited 4 minutes to make sure he was dead, so they knew that they wouldn't be in trouble, because apparently the Bearcat, I don't know, can take bullets or something, and ran into they can to them. That's why they ran over the fences, ran into my brother's back of his truck, and rammed it into the tongue of his trailer, his travel trailer, and drove right up to the front steps where my brother had been laying. And then he laid there for 6 hours while they investigated and did not find the bullet, the single shot that they shot that was in the wall, and my sister found it.
8 hours after the house was released to us, I was cleaning, and I looked at the wall and asked my husband, is that a bullet hole? And we looked, and sure enough, and it had a bullet in it. They had had that house for 20-some hours. They said, scouring the scene. That's why they had to disrespect my brother and leave him lying, so they could get all the evidence. If that's how serious they were about looking, why was the bullet found by me in the wall? I had to call them back on the phone and say, you know the bullet that killed my brother? You might want to come get it because it's still in the wall.
I experienced another example of this kind of behavior. My husband and I went in several years ago so he could talk to the psychiatrist at the VA. He's a 100% disabled veteran from Vietnam. Came home with 3 silver stars, 3 purple hearts, and a bronze star. And probably Brian was trying a lot to live up to his stepdad, because they were pretty close. We got home, and within 10 minutes, 2 cop cars from Benton County come rolling up, squealing into my driveway, and I know my husband well enough. I went out and met them, and I said, what's going on? And they said, we got a call from the VA that your husband's suicidal. I said, he has been every day for 35 years, and so what, you know? Well, does he have guns? I said, yes, he collects guns. Well, you need to take them away from him. I said, if you think that, you better bring your lunch, because it's going to take you all day, you in an army. And I said, he's fine. He's lived with this problem for all these many years, and we've kept it under control. I think it's okay. My husband has never been back to seek help with his depression. Why should he?
Sir, what is your name real quick?
Jason.
Spell last name for me.
McBride.
And pronounce the both names for me.
Jason McBride.
Last question from me. Where are you presenting Brian's bill to? Who are you bringing it to?
To be determined.
Yeah, I don't know.
working
I've
on
never
it.
written a bill. I've
We
never
were
had my brother killed by the
contacting
Eugene
local
Police Department.
Oregon senators and congressmen, but it will be presented in Washington D.C.
I was actually
as a national bill.
Somebody stepped forward who was kind enough to written a bill and gave me a template to start with, and all the addresses and phone numbers and emails of people that we need to start contacting. Probably starting with petitions and letters and everything. Get a form going, and we're just not going to be quiet. Look at us. We're not going away.
And every family who loses a member from this terror, I will contact them.
We're doing it for the other brothers, for the other Brians across the nation that maybe don't have a family with a voice that can share that with them. So we want to address it so they all get the proper care and support that they need when they come
And
home.
I want the teams called Brothers to Brothers out to meet those crises, not police.
I've known Brian for 35 years, and I'm a firearms instructor, and I gave Brian his concealed handgun license. I spent a substantial amount of time here with him, and if I had thought in any way, shape, or form that Brian was a threat, I would never have given him that license. He wasn't a threat to anybody. He was a good man. He's the same man I've known since I was 15 years old. We laughed. He was of the same mind now most of the time that he was when we were kids. No different. His injuries, his head, it didn't make him a different man. It caused him to have some problems and chronic pain, and that'll make anybody cranky. And he had a bad day that day, but he was pushed into what happened.
Can you say your name real quick?
Lisanne, Lisanne, last name Dickinson, Dickenson.
Thank you.
Shouldn't get shot for having a bad day.
Rhonda, I wanted to add something. Talking about the tapes that were redacted or whatever, Becky Higgins is my counselor as well, and she says that once she went on 911, the HIPAA laws kind of went out, so all that stuff is related and releasable to the public so we can get the real story out there. And she had everything planned out. She planned for Brian to come and meet. They were laughing and joking, and she was asking the 911 dispatchers over and over again, what are you doing with this information that I'm giving you? They said it's going straight to the computers right inside the tank, and they're getting it firsthand right on the scene, so they know everything that's going on. They said that they were repeating everything, which in context they're saying they never got any information, so who's lying?
A lot of
Good question.
inconsistency.
What was your name, ma'am? Real quick.
My name's Tammy Bainbridge,
Tami.
T-A-M-I-B-A-I, M as in Mike, B-R-I-D-G-E.
Thank you, Tammy.
I got the answer to that question, Tammy, from the DA. I asked the DA if the police responding were told that my brother was unarmed and was on the telephone with his counselor, and he looked at me and said, nope, he was not. They were not. And I asked why, and he said it would have been irresponsible of us to do that. And I said, don't you think there would have been a different response? You guys would have looked at this like it was a tactical situation they had to conquer. He didn't really have an answer for that, because they were not told on purpose.
I know that I'd called after reading the counselor's report, and then the next day both of these articles were in the Guard. The one was from Alex Gardner saying that he was working with the Veterans Administration on how things could have been handled differently, and that it was an ongoing thing that they were doing. And so I'm writing a paper, and just as a result I decided to call the VA and find out who they were working with so I could ask them questions. And as of a day after the report that he put out, he hadn't contacted the VA, nor was he working with either of the counselors that work here locally that I know. So it was an outright lie to the public when he said that they were dealing with the Veterans Administration on how to make things work better next time. I'm not saying that he doesn't plan on doing it in the future. However, when he told us that they were working on it, that was a lie.
What's your name, sir?
My name's Rex Harwood. I'm Brian's cousin, R-E-X-H-A-R-W-O-O-D.
Thank you, Mr. Harwood.
They've been working with the Vet Center, which does not have the trained staff and personnel to be that. They don't have the ability to train law enforcement officers. It needs to be people that work with these people on a daily basis that know the ins and outs of PTSD.
Specialist task force. Primarily, absolutely for veterans in distress. That's what this bill is going to be about. Just trying to get that changed.
Keeping veterans alive.
Yeah. Standardized protocol, law enforcement having specialized teams to do so.
Veterans' lives matter.
Yep. Brian's bill, guys. You'll hear it.
Thank you guys for coming. We appreciate it.
And talk about the march again, May, real quick, what is that going to be?
Pardon?
The
march
march.
on May 12th?
Would have been my brother's 50th birthday, May 12th. So we call upon all of you to join us.
At Wayne Morris Square, downtown at the courthouse. And then we will march a couple blocks over to the VA Center. And
At noon.
cake and ice cream? No, the ice cream probably not. The cake will have.
Maybe more pizza.
Yeah, more pizza.
Oh, pizza, yeah. But yeah, it would have been he was born on Mother's Day.
And thank you to Papa's Pizza for giving us the pizza so we could be here. And
They actually donated it.
Papa's
to
Pizza
us. Yeah.
donated pizza for us today. It was very kind.
very
of them to do.
appreciated.
So do you feel that the city of Eugene and the district attorney's office and the police department have been working overtime? It
Yeah.
seems like to me, on their spin doctoring, on the public relations,
They've been working overtime
on the
on that.
marketing, and
Yes.
I mean, do you sense that? I mean,
We're not doing anything at all.
yeah.
You know, bottom line, I don't think they really even care, and that's the point.
I think it was
We need
a
lip
good
service.
PR for them on what they were doing. I believe it was an excellent PR plan to hold everything for a month before releasing it.
Yeah.
They said they were had received threats. I don't know from whom.
Because
None
we
of our
didn't know
people.
the name of the shooter, how could there be threats against the shooter?
And
Makes
so
sense.
that's why that was the reason we was given that all of the information, everything was withheld from us for a month.
Right.
Yeah, but a month doesn't change the truth.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No.
And that's what we're all saying.
Redesign it.
Well, and it keeps a lot of people away from being interested in it because a lot of people believe that Brian did something that caused him to die. And in fact, he did not.
Yeah.
He did not.
I'll never believe he leveled that
No.
gun at anybody.
Never. Unless they've got a video proving it, it didn't happen.
They don't.
Brian
Didn't happen.
may have been suicidal, but trust me, he was not homicidal.
No.
And I even questioned his suicide.
Well, there's another thing that sometimes the police department will say in these kind of situations, which is suicide by cop.
No.
That's what they
Have
said.
you heard that?
Oh,
or-
we've heard that, but that's not Brian either.
Actually,
No,
not as
never.
much as I would think at all.
Yeah.
We've been
Implied.
getting or most people understand how wrong this was.
Yeah, I mean,
He wasn't given a chance at all. And I don't hear suicide by cop. Personally, I don't. Of course, that would be the first thing you think of, but I haven't heard that. I am so sorry that happened.
We're
He
grateful
wasn't given a chance.
that the law enforcement, and I don't believe it was Eugene Police Department, but the law enforcement that was in charge of 2 other veterans that were suffering within a few days of Brian's death was afforded 8 hours with one gentleman, and he was shooting into the neighborhood, running up and down. And then the other person, same situation, handgun shooting in the neighborhood, and he was afforded some 6.5 hours. And both of them, it was resolved non-lethal.
I got a call from my son's school who goes to Churchill saying they were on a modified lockdown 2 weeks after my brother had been shot. I panicked. I was texting Drew, my son, over there, and he said, "Mom, I'll return the library book. It's okay." What I know is that Kennedy and McCormick, 3 schools were closed. This man was shooting a gun, and he was subdued with sponge bullets. Why didn't my brother get afforded that luxury of living?
I was told when I asked that question to the DA is that the decision to go with they had the decision, they had that choice to make. And the reason they made that choice with Brian was to go with deadly force. It was because of his superior training as a combat
Well, then
officer.
why didn't they let the neighbors know to get the children in out of the yard?
Tactically speaking, he
It
should have
was-
been upstairs. But
Why was it 4 days before they even called me to tell me my son was dead? Nobody called me from the police force at all.
And it was reported they couldn't release any information because no family member was notified. I was standing right where that gray pickup is right now, and I stood there for over an hour and a half waiting to be told that they had shot my nephew. The family was here. We were here within 5 minutes of this.
This is how it works in my family. My cousin was friends with a neighbor. My cousin Jeff, or Rex, friends with a neighbor. She saw what was going on, called him. He called my Aunt Marlis, and my Aunt Marlis called me. I called my sister, my mother, and everybody, and we knew within 10 minutes what was going on.
Any one of us could have been here.
We all knew.
And
That's
the
how we were.
counselor asked to be here. It's on the tape. She said, please, I'll do
begged.
anything.
She was pretty
Please,
much
I'll go to
begging.
the scene. What can I do? I don't want Brian to die. It's on the tape. She begged.
Mandatory body cameras would also prove whether or not Brian had leveled a weapon. I'd like part of Brian's bill to have something to do with mandatory body cameras.
Yeah.
There would have been, however many officers were on scene, there would have been that many points of view of cameras backing up the police's version of events.
We were told by the
eyewitnesses.
ISIT and VA, when we asked about the camera in the Bearcat, that it recorded video only, no audio. Video was blocked by the fence, so there was no audio.
Sounds like a good reason to retreat to me, especially when he's on
And
the side of his
remembering that
counsel
these
making
people
progress,
are
nobody-
probably
only one person can see.
under the influence of alcohol or drugs, a few hours makes a lot of difference for them. And so if you can back off and give them time to sober up or come down off their high, they will respond.
There was a rush to fix it right now, even though there wasn't a threat. You know, there wasn't a credible threat. He was in his house.
You call that a police state mentality?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
you bet.
They responded with an excessive, overwhelming amount of force to a guy who was having a bad day. He was unarmed. He was talking to his counselor.
Talk to any VA counselor, any counselor, that would have been the absolute worst thing they could have done.
He had an appointment the next morning. He'd been talking with his buddy Craig about fishing the next week. There's no, no
Wasn't
doubt in
going
my mind.
anywhere.
He was not planning to die that day.
His
Well,
counselor
one of
told the
the things-
911 operator that he was not likely to talk with police, but he would talk to a fellow veteran or to her because she already had an existing relationship with him. So she had begged and pleaded to come down. Why
And
she
they
was
ignored
denied,
that.
I don't understand that.
What I want to know is why the press nationwide has ducked this issue to the extent they have, that when they covered the issue of cop killings in wherever, Baltimore, yes, thank you, and all over the country, and yet 22 young people are dying every day because we have cops that are out of control. They have no business in a military setup. They're supposed to be police officers. We don't need more military. We've got military. We've got our National Guard.
And we're
We've
hoping
got
that's
our
what
Army.
Brian's bill will address nationwide.
But I want to know, where was the nationwide press when all of these young people are being killed? 22 a day. That's horrible.
Eugene has a large amount of veteran population, and being 100% disabled veteran myself with PTSD, I know that the people that I work in groups with and go to counseling with, we're all terrified, because we've been in those dark places, and it's a scary feeling. And who do we call? We can't feel safe calling anybody, because this could happen to us.
Right.
Just the sight of a police officer these days. I used to work in law enforcement. I had the utmost respect, and now I have a fear, because I get in those dark places a lot because of what I've suffered serving in the military. And it's not fair, everybody's running scared, so you're going to have more and more of those suicides if we don't do something right now to stop it.
You can't go to a counselor, they'll report you. And right now, the only reporting place they can go to is 911, guaranteed that you're going to get the least amount of helpful treatment.
Thank you.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very
guys
much.
very much for being here. Appreciate it from my bottom of my heart and my son's heart. Thank you.
Thank you. And as soon as we do have that full tape, we'll be releasing it.
Rhonda?
Yeah.
Yeah, we've been emailing a little bit.
Oh, okay. Pleased to meet you. This is Ranger, Brian's orphan. He's now